Hello, everybody. Welcome back to English Champion. On this episode, I'm going to share with you a, a social media post and then the comment thread below it because it's very indicative of what we're dealing with in higher education and how people in administration or who aren't super intimate in the classroom, they don't teach very often, or they haven't been around students in the classroom academic environment very much lately, have a complete misunderstanding of what education is and should be. And so I'm not going to say this person's name, and I'm not going to say what university this person works at, but he is a deans, and an English professor. And so his post caught my eye, and then the comments just spiraled from there because I'm just like, what are people talking about here? So I'm going to go through this and share a little bit about where he goes wrong with his proposals for the future of education. So it's a very short post on LinkedIn, and he starts his post by saying this: perhaps the worst error higher education has made was to mistake achievement for natural ability. So right out of the gate, I don't really know what that sentence means. I don't know anyone in the world of education who mistakes achievement for natural ability. I think anyone who's been a teacher for any length of time, or just a normal person, you don't need to be a teacher, even parents or anyone observing other human beings would notice that, all right, there are some people who achieve success because they kind of have a natural inclination towards it. They have some sort of physical or mental skill that they seem to have always kind of had, and they're just pretty good at stuff, and that's how they become successful. But we also know that some people don't have many of those innate natural skills or abilities, and they just work really, really hard. Maybe they're kind of the underdogs of various careers or other parts of society where you're like, man, that person, they had all the odds against them, but they still made it. Something that, they have something special about them with their effort and their discipline and just ability to persevere. It's like, yeah, we all know that. So I don't know why he's saying achievement has basically been confused with natural ability. I don't think anyone thinks that. So I don't know what he's talking about in his very first sentence. So let's see if he clarifies as he goes. We live in the aftermath of a sorting system that assumes true excellence manifests early and is therefore to be recognized and rewarded by admission through very narrow gates, in effect, pre-selecting students who have already succeeded for further success. Okay, so when he says a sorting system for excellence that manifests early, what does he mean by early exactly? Because when we're talking about higher education, because again, he works at a major state university, the sorting system and the early manifestation is 13 years. You've had 13 years to develop your skills, to find your talents and gifts, to decide who you think you want to be. And it doesn't mean everyone knows that answer when they're in college. Of course, college is still a time of discovery, but college is supposed to be a place where if you've proven you have the skills and drive and motivation to keep going with your education, then we at the university, decide whether we want to let you in or not. So there is a gatekeeping, but it's not based on this early manifestation that, oh, everything's decided when you're 6 years old and you show that you have the talent to be a university student. It's like, no, you have 13 years to work on that. So this early manifestation that, you know, it's only the very fortunate and the very gifted who have this natural ability that he talked about. They're the only ones that they get identified as being potentially successful, and those are who we let into college. No, there are some kids who are terrible students when they're little kids, who kind of figure it out once they get older. There are some students who have great talents when they're young, and they squander them because they don't have the motivation and discipline as they get older, and they maybe don't cut it as college material. There's all sorts of different types of people. That's why you get 13 years to figure all that out. This notion is just insane that you think that excellence manifests early and they're the ones who get rewarded. I can't believe a teacher would think that. Like, if you're a teacher and you think that, then what's the point of teaching? All you have to do then is just go identify the genius 6-year-olds and tell everyone else to beat it. You don't deserve to be in school, and just help them over the course of their life. But that's not what we do. as someone who was an elementary teacher and then taught all the way up through the highest levels of university, including at major state universities, like we're constantly helping students along. But those 13 years are where they learn the basics, the foundations of the culture and what learning is all about. And then, yes, there is a gatekeeping process. And he says, rewarded by admission through very narrow gates. Narrow gates? Are you serious? The gates to admission to college have never, ever been easier than they are now. Ever. Yes, college is more expensive than ever, but gaining access to college is easier than ever. If you want to go to school, no matter who you are, you can go. There is a school somewhere that will accept you. All right? The opportunities for financial aid and government loans and various obscure scholarships, extracurricular activities, you can get in somewhere. Okay? So when we say these very special types of kids who are just naturally gifted and they're only getting in through very narrow gates, like none of that's true. It's just not. Kids develop over time, and then they get to decide if they want to, if they care enough about education to keep going, and then they need to in some way prove that they have the skills from their 13 years of education, usually through a testing or GPA process. And then, yeah, there's the gatekeeping where the school goes, oh, we don't think you can cut it here. You're going to have to go somewhere else. Or, yeah, you look like a great fit for our school. You look like you're smart. You look like you're really hardworking. You can come to our school. Yeah, those gates are not narrow. They're available to anyone. And you've had 13 years of K through 12 to prepare for it. And you're not pre-selected. Everyone has the same chance. Yes, there are different types of schools. Some public schools are better than others. Some kids get to go to private schools, yada, yada. Yeah, we get that. And that's what he says in the very next sentence. But not everyone starts from the same place. Well, yeah, that's true of everything in life. No one starts from the same place. As I've said on this before, like I didn't start from the place that LeBron James did of having parents who would pass on their genetics to me so that I would be 6'8", 250 pounds of muscle. Yeah, no one starts from the same place. You have to start from somewhere, though. And in our system, for good or for bad, regardless of the varying levels, everyone has access to a K through 12 education. And then because of the way the world is now, everyone, if you don't feel like you're getting enough of a K through 12 education, there are not only libraries, not only the internet, not only endless free resources that you can find on your own or your parents can find on your own, but there's also all sorts of tutoring services that are very reasonable, volunteers who help kids with reading. Yeah, it's accessible for everyone. You just have to choose to do it. That's all it is. He continues, a couple more sentences. A more humane educational system would be built around robust support infrastructure that ensures undifferentiated outcomes no matter where students begin. It's lazy and self-defeating to act otherwise. Ensures, look at the language here, ensures undifferentiated, meaning equality of outcomes, no matter where a student begins. You think you have the power or that there's enough money in the universe to make everyone end up academically equal, no matter where they started. That's the utopian craziness of too many people in higher education, especially in fields like the humanities where they don't understand science and everything is like this open possibility that everyone should be successful and everyone should be smart. And it's like, yeah, that's not how the world works. And the nice thing that our system has, again, for better or for worse, because there are many flaws with it, but I think this gentleman would agree that, boy, isn't it great that we provide K through 12, 13 years of practice so that ultimately we can decide who can cut it and who wants to cut it at the higher education level. Instead of just saying, here's this elite institution called a university, and you've had no practice at all. You've had no training. You've had no learning and adapting to what that higher education world might be like. Instead, we're just going to give you a quiz, and whoever gets a high score, when you're 6 years old, gets into college. Well, yeah, that would be seemingly pretty unfair. I could understand that complaint. saying that We need to have an infrastructure that makes everyone equal no matter what. And believing that the admissions to university is a narrow gate that's automatically pre-sorted. Like, what? That's so ridiculous. I can't believe an educated person would say something like this. It always reminds me of Thomas Sowell's quote, and borrowed it from George Orwell, which is like, there's some ideas that are just so ridiculous, only an intellectual would believe them. This is craziness. That you think that's how you're a dean at a university. Don't you understand how universities even work? This is crazy. So this was the original comment that I just thought, what is he talking about? The other thing, before I get on to some of the other responses to this, is I've said this on previous podcasts. These types of people who believe in like equity for all completely ignore the fact that they themselves have reached the highest levels of their profession by participating in something that is the opposite of that. The only reason this guy is a dean and a very successful guy is because he went through the gatekeeping process. All right? He had to be evaluated by some other higher level person that thought this guy's got the skills, the background, the talent to, the proven track record to be successful in this position as a dean and professor at my university. All right. He had to go through that interview, that very rigorous tenure process, whatever it was. He had to go through that. And he's grateful for that probably because it allowed him to have the job he has. Because if he were to be asked, hey, bud, how did you get that job? He would say, well, I had to work really hard. I had to publish a lot of papers. I had to serve on all these other positions at the university. I had to teach for a long time. I had to do a lot of rigorous stuff. And so that's why I'm worthy of this position. It's like, yeah, that explanation is reality. And that explanation undermines everything you say you believe about everyone else. You think everyone should just have access to everything. Yet you didn't think that for yourself. You got your cushy job because you had to go through the gatekeeping process. So if everyone got to do that, you wouldn't even have your position, or if you would, it wouldn't mean anything because anyone could get it. You are a special high-level status person because you went through it. So this is, again, I've written about this and talked about it. These are the types of people who have climbed to the highest branches of the tree and then, kind of want to chop down the tree so that no one else can climb up. Like, you're taking away the incentives and the process by which people become successful. All right? You're not even living out what you say you believe. And that's the problem with many administrators in higher education. They aren't in the classroom every day. They don't see the results of a policy like this, where you would have a flood, which already exists, but you'd have even more of a flood of students arriving at universities completely unprepared, completely unskilled, completely unmotivated. Why? Because you just let everyone in. And there's no screening process to determine, who would be a good fit for being successful at this high level. Again, that's what the K through 12 system is supposed to be for. So you're either admitting that you don't care about your own status, or you're basically throwing all K through 12 education under the bus by saying, yeah, you guys are so horrible that we need to restart the education screening process and actual education process and start from scratch with these kids when they're 19 because you didn't do it when they were 6 through 18. Well, which is it? I'm sure he wouldn't say that, but this is where he is. So somehow he believes that the kids we let into universities are just the ones who are naturally gifted, and we let them in through a very narrow gate. And that's not fair. Okay. Many kids in college aren't naturally gifted. They work really, really hard to get where they are. They didn't have all the advantages. They've put forth the effort to earn that spot. And the gates have never been wider. It's easier than ever for kids to get into college. All right, so there was his sort of initial statement. Here's what other people said below. This is sort of a very weird comment, and it's going to contradict with someone else's comment later. This lady says, one thing I think we have truly lost sight of is the value of failure. I know students who have never, ever failed. As a result, they can never really succeed except in this very narrow way. Other students who take risk, fail, get up, and try again are penalized. all right, I could potentially agree with sort of the first part because grade inflation, again, the easiness of many academic environments, whether it's elementary, junior high, high school, or college, you're right, don't fail kids. And so, like, I kind of agree with what she's saying at the beginning. And so I was like, she sounds like she would be disagreeing with this person's statement that we need more kids to fail because they need to know what it's like to then pursue success. But then she says those students who take a risk, fail, and get up and try again are penalized. Like, what academic world are you living in where the kids who actually learn from their failures, get up and try again, are ultimately penalized? Those kids learn valuable lessons. And yeah, they may, because of their failures, might not get as high of grades, but they're learning very valuable things in their education process. If they've been taught and encouraged to get up and try again, that's all great. That's what we teach every student. That's what we teach athletes. That's what you teach your, music students. You have to just keep trying. So again, this goes against what, or this I guess is how she says she's agreeing with the previous post, because you're believing they get penalized when it's like, no, these are kids who make it. I don't know what you mean by this. Um, I've seen countless students in my 20 years of over 20 years of being in education um, who were not naturally great students, who just busted their butt. They got extra help. They studied hard. They learned from mistakes, and they became successful. I don't know what you mean by, oh, those are the kids who get penalized. What? Very strange comment. And the original poster, he loves exclamation points, as people do online. So very true. Failure's often the beginning rather than any kind of end. It's like, yeah, everyone agrees with that. Yet you're saying in your original post that everything needs to be equal. You said undifferentiated outcomes, no matter where you are. Okay, well, how can you have that if you never have failure? Or if we do have failure, you're going to have different outcomes. I don't know the guy's logic is completely confusing. But he agrees with her. So very true. Failure is the beginning rather than any kind of end. Anyone who's a teacher believes that. If you don't believe that, you can't be a teacher, because the whole process of learning means at the beginning you're not going to get stuff. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to struggle. You have to keep working at it. That's what the teacher's job is to help you with. So he's saying something that everyone already agrees with. So I don't know what point he actually means. That lady responded to him with exclamation points. Exactly. I'm on a mission to make students talk openly about failure and what they learned with no shame. Okay, great. Yeah, I don't know why anyone would why I don't know why this is any sort of brave proposal. This is what everyone believes. If you're in education, this is what everyone thinks. Now, again, back to how long this process is. This is why kids get 13 years, is because they need to have these failures and then learn from them and then try again next week, next month, next year, from one type of school to the next, from elementary to junior high to high school. They learn these lessons along the way. But what you're offering here in the original post is that regardless of what happened along the way, everyone should get a fresh start and get into college. It's like, well, then what was the previous 13 years for? None of that mattered then. Your little lessons about failure here didn't matter because you're just going to let everyone in anyway. There's nothing to learn. That's what the kids learn is, well, I don't need to work hard. And if I do fail, it doesn't matter because guess what? That nice dean at that university is going to let me into school anyway. So what's the point of the previous 13 years? Nothing. That's why none of this makes any sense. So this other guy, of course, agrees, and he says, excellent thoughts here, reinforcing the urgent need for radical changes at the core of higher education ideology. Our system is based on a theory of natural selection admissions practices that favor students who have already demonstrated measurable achievements. Yes, that's true. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's what differentiates it from K through 12 education, where everyone has access. All right? It's just like, I talk about this all the time, any other institution in life, okay? The NBA, all right? You could substitute the words here. The NBA is based on a theory of natural selection admissions practices that favor players who've already demonstrated measurable achievements. Yeah, That's the point of the NBA. You had to have shown that you're already a pretty good player, and then they draft you to be on their team in the NBA. You've been selected, you've been admitted. They don't just randomly pick people, and they don't pick people who haven't demonstrated any skill or measurable achievement. You have to have a track record where people can look at you and go, okay, this next level is harder, so we need to assess whether you're capable of achieving at this level. If you don't have those, then how will we know if you're going to be successful? Again, when you assume everyone can be successful, regardless of the previous 13 years, this is all going to be a giant mess. So, a theory of natural selection. Yep, that's how all of it is. All right. Now, again, he's talking about higher education. Again, not lower education, not elementary education, where everyone's admitted. You can go, anyone can go to school. Anyone has to go to school. It's required. So that's what those 13 years are for. There is a selection process because the work keeps getting harder. So it's the same thing. If you want to be an engineer at Google, well, they're going to have a selection process based on your demonstrated measurable achievements. Yeah, they need to know that you know how to code, that maybe you have a certain degree from a certain university so that you're the best. Whatever. Yeah, that's how all of life is. Again, same thing with this guy's job as the dean. We could say we should be criticizing all of administration here, which I do all the time, but it's based on a theory of natural selection admissions practices that favor administrators who've already demonstrated measurable achievements. Well, this guy, the guy who wrote the post, would say, yeah, I've demonstrated these measurable achievements. That's how I get to be the dean of the college. We go, okay, well, looks like you've earned it. All right, fine. But yet we don't apply that to everyone else. That's the problem. If we're going to prepare young people for the reality of life once they're adults, because again, we're not counting K through 12. This is adulthood now. This is how life is. Everything is a selection process based on your previous achievements or demonstrated skills or aptitude or whatever you can show. Yeah, that's how everything is. Here's the kicker. Here's what everyone really wants. This person continues in his response. Institutions must invest. Got it. It's about money. In academic, financial, and social resources to enable all students to thrive. Yeah, we already do that. The government already gives loans to kids so they can go get their education. We already have grants. We already have scholarships. We have every single type of resource you could imagine to try to help kids go on to the next level. We already have it. And we spend more per student in those early years than almost every country in the world. And yet, with these people, it's never enough. We must invest. And let's just remember what investment means. Okay? Investment means a guy from the government with a gun is going to come to your house and say, give me your money so that I can give it to that kid so he can maybe go learn something at college. That's what investment means. It doesn't mean, I think this is a really good cause. I'm going to choose to do that. No. You want someone with a gun to show up at my house and force me to pay my taxes that invests in these kids at university. That's what you mean by invest. Forcing people at the point of a gun to give over their money. That's what you really mean. But will these students thrive? Institutions should consider more holistic admissions processes that account for contextual factors such as socioeconomic background, access to advanced coursework, individualized student success interventions, and other indicators of potential beyond simple test scores and grades. Schools already do that. Part of that's all the DEI stuff, so that's already been in place for quite a while. Perhaps the biggest challenge is rewiring administrative systems to shift from measuring innate ability to tracking. Again, it's not innate. It's like just because you got good grades in high school doesn't mean that was innate. Maybe it was just because you worked really hard. Maybe it's because you sought out tutors and you did more reading on your own than anyone else. And you did extra math problems to try to improve yourself. Like the idea of things being innate, like this is a pretty horrible worldview if that's what you think in the world of education. From measuring innate ability to tracking student growth and development over time. A humane and effective educational system values potential as much as achievement and provides the resources necessary to transform one into the other. Yeah, but how do you measure? How do you know who has potential? All right, the best indicator of future performance is past performance. So potential has to be observed or measured in some way to figure out how successful that person could be. Now, are there surprises? Are there, you know, exceptions to that where it's like, this person didn't demonstrate any talent at all. They had no drive, no ambition, no skill, and yet something clicked at the last minute and now they're super successful. Yeah, those, I guess, exist. But the reality is, how do you value potential? I mean, theoretically, every single person has potential. Someone who, you know, can barely run has the potential to be an Olympic track athlete. Are you going to put your money on that kid to become an Olympic track athlete? Like, what? That's not how it works. Again, this utopian vision that like everyone should have access to everything. That's just not reality. That's not how life is. Look at the basics of economics. Everything is scarce. There have to be choices made, and there are going to be automatic hierarchies developed, like becoming a dean. Like, everyone has the potential to become an academic dean. Well, not that high school kid who smokes weed every day and can barely read. He doesn't have the potential because he doesn't care about it. So why would we invest in people who don't have any demonstrable potential? We have to measure something. Colleges and universities that embrace this philosophy are better positioned to fulfill their mission of producing not just job-ready, but world-ready students. I have no idea what world-ready students means. That foster societal impact and individual transformation. At least that's what they pay for. No, you're asking us to pay for it. If the kids want to pay for it, by all means, I would love that. You should pay for your own education because it's your life. And if you care about it, put your money on the table and prove it. But you're not asking for that, are you? You want me, someone, who's already gone through all this and already paid my own bills. You want me to invest in these kids. So which is it? It's hard to tell. So potential. That's what really matters is potential. Okay. Of course, the Post author replies, "So well said!" Double exclamation point. Especially in the need to shift from measuring innate ability to tracking student growth. He just quotes him and says, "Yes." It's like, okay, Dean, you have the power. You're an important guy. You could do this. But I would bet when you're hiring your faculty, you don't go on potential. You go on, well, what have they published? How long have they been a professor? Where did they get their degree from? Right? You're not looking into some vague idea of, well, they seem like a good person and everyone should get a chance, so I should give them a full-time tenure track position. That's not how you work. You're the ultimate gatekeeper, and yet you think it doesn't apply to students. Someone else said, "I could not agree more. Remarkable, academically successful, financially stable, and emotionally supported students do not need the help of our public institutions of higher learning to become the next generation of successful citizens." Well, that seems a bit unfair. That, just because someone happens to come from a good household, you don't think they deserve the same access that other kids do? That seems quite unfair. Doesn't everyone deserve the access? Doesn't everyone deserve the outcomes? Doesn't matter what your background is? I thought that was what these guys thought. These students start from a place that in all practical measures ensures their success. All right, again, these people have no understanding of reality. I'm always reminded of the quote by, let me just pull it up because I can't remember it word for word, of Calvin Coolidge. "There's nothing more common in this world than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." So yeah, there's all sorts of people in America who come from good families, who go to good schools, who end up being, regular folks. They don't achieve these high levels of success. They don't want to go to college, or they can't get into college. Yeah, there's nothing more common than average. That's the reality of it. And yet you think, oh, well, if you come from a good household with, parents who emotionally support you, you're automatically going to be successful. That's not true. And the inverse isn't true either, that if you don't come from those places, you can't become successful unless we help you get into college. Not true at all. There are all sorts of people who have grown up with tough lives and, weren't necessarily as adept at things academic, had financial problems, had other household problems, and turned out to be great citizens, very successful. Maybe they started their own business. Whatever. Anyone can become successful. Yeah, do people in those situations have a bit of a leg up? Sure. Those are certainly advantages. But that doesn't mean it's your destiny. Again, these people involved in education who are so obsessed with destiny that, well, if you're this type of person, this is what your future looks like. And if you're this type of person, that's what your future looks like. It's like, why are you in education? The whole point of education is to say, it doesn't matter who you are. If you work really hard, whether it's using your innate ability or even if you don't have it, you work extremely hard to get up to the level of being highly skilled or really smart, you can be successful. And these are people saying, nope, you can't do it. You need extra help because you're too dumb. You're not from a good enough household. Like, why would you be in education if that's how you think this? If that's what you think, it's crazy. Again, they start from places that ensure their success. The highest purpose of public education is to give unremarkable, unlikely students who lack those familiar stepladders an opportunity to learn, succeed, and become remarkable. To a certain degree, I agree. That's what K through 12 education is for. So again, you're mixing the topic here. We're talking about universities. K through 12 is to develop those kids who might come from a difficult background and say, hey, we've provided this service for you. Yes, at the point of a gun, because that's what state funding is. But you know what? We've provided it. So here's your chance. You have 13 years to decide what kind of person you want to become, at least from an academic standpoint. 13 years. We're giving you that chance. These people think, well, you've never had a chance before. That's why college needs to give everyone this chance. Okay. This other person says, perhaps more important is the preservation of an equitable admissions process where your story is heard and things like your intellectual curiosity and service get others excited about the impact you and the college may have on each other. How do you assess intellectual curiosity? How do you know that? You only know things by what people do, by what people demonstrate. These people just assume that, well, because I guess they applied to college and, they like tinkering with robotics, they must be intellectually curious. Yeah, maybe, but maybe not. How do you know? They need to have done something. That's what the K through 12 education is for. Or they need to have, performed well in some other manner. Otherwise, how do you know? Again, they're back to, well, it doesn't really matter. You just let everybody in. And that's going to make everything way worse. And this lady says, she comments, and for those who were bypassed and considered not as brilliant, if someone in their adulthood does not help them undo that wiring, they might never push themselves to achieve what they could because all they have heard all their lives is that they are failures based on the narrow gates we arbitrarily set. Okay, so two things. One, this comment contradicts the previous comment about failures. The previous lady said, we don't have enough failures in the world or enough opportunities to fail for kids. And so, they don't get a chance to learn how to get themselves back up. This lady says all they're doing is failing, and so there's no chance for them to get themselves back up. So which is it? There aren't enough opportunities to fail, or there's too many opportunities to fail? This is the problem with these super vague notions about education, is because this is, if you look deeply enough, this is eventually what it leads to. People can say two things in support of the same idea, but say the opposite things. So therefore, none of this makes any sense. Why? Because it's so vague, and again, utopian thinking, that there is no right answer for you. Because as long as it sounds nice, as long as you use words like equitable, then, and as long as you criticize and condemn the gatekeepers and whatever other buzzwords you're using, you get to be the good guy. You get to sound like you're right, even when two people are saying the exact opposite thing. The last thing this lady said, the narrow gates we arbitrarily set. It's like, well, is there some sense that, you have to have a 1390 to get into this university? Is that a bit arbitrary? Like, why couldn't you make it 1380 or 1400? Like, yeah, a little bit arbitrary. Okay, there are some things that seem, a bit unnecessary or random. But also, again, what's the point of the university? The point of the university is to see who, from their previous 13 years of schooling, has demonstrated that they can handle whatever that university does. If they're an elite, if they're MIT, They need to know if kids can do math. They need to know if kids can handle basic physics. They need to know that because they're going to get the way harder stuff at MIT. And if they haven't demonstrated that they can handle it, they're going to flunk out of MIT, which means it's going to make the school less reputable because they admitted people who weren't qualified and it's going to harm their graduation rate. Well, they don't want that. They want to know that if that you have the background, skills, or knowledge to potentially be successful at the school. Well, the only way to assess that is to either look at test scores, look at previous experience, look at their GPAs, look at the courses they took, look at internships they've had, whatever. That's how you figure it out. It's not arbitrary. These universities do this on purpose because they need to know if the kids they're admitting can handle the work. Now, again, there's different levels of that. So, yeah, MIT has this standard. Stanford has this standard. But then this gentleman's state university has this standard. Community colleges have this standard. There's all sorts of opportunities for students, and it's not arbitrary. It's whatever the school believes aligns with what they're trying to teach. If you're a community college and you're trying to teach some people some basic skills so they can decide if they want to continue on in higher education, they get an introduction to college, or they're learning very specific vocational skills, yeah, their standards are going to be different than what is required at MIT. So it's not arbitrary. The schools decide them based on the mission and vision of their school and what service they want to provide students. And ultimately, who thinks they can cut it at that school. There's nothing arbitrary about that. Again, this person, a vice dean, because of course, there's always more administrators. Beautifully stated. A genuinely transformative educational system would invest, right? Gun showing up at my house. That's what you want. In leveling the playing field, recognizing that excellence can emerge from anywhere with the proper support. Thank you for this powerful reminder of what higher education should strive to be. Okay, so this is something that can be partially true, but also misleading. Excellence can emerge from anywhere with the proper support. I would agree with that in most cases. Everyone can do something, okay? Doesn't mean you can do what everyone else can. So it's not the removal of undifferentiated outcomes as the poster wants. But everyone can do something. Even if you have a disability, there are certain things you can probably be pretty decent at. However, these people assume that excellence can emerge from anywhere with the proper support. People assume that excellence happens at the highest levels of education. No, okay? There are some people who just don't want to or can't perform very well at the college level. It's just the reality of it. It doesn't matter what proper support you give them. All right? They're not going to do it. So we need to figure out what things in life those kids want to do and then direct them towards that, which very rarely is actually college. All right? You can be an excellent auto mechanic. You can be an excellent actor or actress at your local theater. You can be excellent in all sorts of things. You can be an excellent person who provides donations to the needy. There's a million things you can be excellent at. None of those things require a college education. So when we talk about this investment, you're saying pouring more money into people because you think they need college when maybe they don't. Now, some might. That's fine. We can talk about how we can get more of those kids into college. But you're saying level the playing field, which is make everyone the same, and that excellence can emerge, but you're only narrowly defining excellence in a field in the context of college. Maybe those kids shouldn't go to college. College is not for everyone. Let people pursue excellence in their own way. And again, that's what the K through 12 education is for, is so that they can get some level of knowledge and skill so that if they determine, you know what, college isn't for me, but I've learned some helpful math, I've learned some helpful writing skills, I've learned some things about finances. I think I can go start my own business. I can go into some other line of work that doesn't require college. Great, go be excellent. Excellence is not, exclusively tied to education at the college level. We have to stop that thinking. But again, these deans who have no understanding of the day-to-day lives of students because they sit in their big fancy offices and avoid students, this is why they don't get it. And they can say these very highfalutin, utopian things without any reality in the functional world. So this is what happens. Um, this other lady says, "You hit the nail on the head. The traditional American model of college is based on social gatekeeping rather than education." Again, kind of true, but there is education, at least at good schools. Fortunately, many of us, including growing numbers of those who have benefited from the system, yeah, you benefited, exactly, but you don't think anyone else can. You think, I succeeded because look at all my publications and look at all my experience and all the things I've done, but all those other people, they're too dumb. They can't handle it. I'm the smart one here. I deserve to be the dean. It's like, yeah, that's what you think of people, that no one else can do it. That she's glad that many are now actively working to increase access to quality education at all levels and throughout the lifespan. Knowledge isn't a zero-sum game. I don't have any idea what that sentence means. Knowledge isn't a zero-sum game. I don't know if she knows what zero-sum means. Zero-sum means when someone gains, someone else has to lose. Yeah, no one believes that knowledge is a zero-sum game. Just because you know a history fact doesn't mean, oh, I can't learn it now. It's closed off because you already own that history fact. I guess I don't get the opportunity to learn history. It's like, nope, knowledge is available for everybody. Very weird comment. Another person saying invest. Investing in a student of average achievement who has overcome adversity, underfunded schools, and other challenges, and the results might be not just substantial, but life-changing as well. Yeah, again, we already invest more than any other country in the world, except maybe we're second in the world. Yeah, we already do that. And yet you're complaining that it's not enough. So when is enough enough? And that's about it. So that is this gentleman's post this past week and the responses to it. Let me just clarify one more thing. The reason I haven't talked about him or his university is because I don't want to insult people too closely, but I want everyone to just be aware of something. So I looked into this guy because he works at a public university, so his information is public. This gentleman, who's the dean, makes $360,000 a year. $360,000 a year. So back to what I said early on. How do you think he claims that he deserves that kind of gigantic salary? He believes he passed through the gatekeeping process. That's how. He believes, he has to believe. Otherwise, there's no reason for him to claim that he deserves that kind of salary. Okay? When other teachers make a fraction of that. So how come he deserves, whatever that is, 9 times more than the average American earner? Or, median household income's like, I don't know, 40 to 50,000, whatever. Why does he deserve that? He would say, well, I earned it because I've done all this scholarly research and I've done all this work at other universities. Yeah, you went through the gatekeeping. That's what happened. So you do believe in gatekeeping because that's what allows you to have your cushy job. Now, he is the dean, but he also is professor of English. So I was like, oh, well, does he still teach anything? Well, he's not teaching right now. He didn't teach last spring. He doesn't teach in the summer. He did teach one class in the fall. And, oh, this must have been a really intense class if, they limited him to one class. No. This class met once a week for 50 minutes. All right? So for less than an hour a week, so for 16-week semester, he met for, 14 hours total out of an entire semester with his class. And so that's his time in the classroom. So this is what we have when we have all these deans and vice presidents and vice deans and yada yada, all these administrators. They make these enormous salaries. They get to say things that are completely unmoored from reality. And they don't really have any connection to students. They don't know what goes on in the classroom. All right? Anyone who spent any time in the classroom, as I did for 17 years in a college classroom, go fill that room with kids who have no measurable qualifications for being at college. Go try and teach those kids, because you'll have students in there who are basically illiterate, all the way up to students who could be in graduate school right now. And they'll all be in the same exact classroom. Now, some of that happens at many gen ed, liberal arts institutions anyway, where may not have super high standards, but there won't be that big of a gap, okay? But you start not measuring qualifications and have a more level playing field admissions process, that's what you'll get. You'll get kids who didn't care at all about high school, but they keep getting told, oh, I got to go to college. I can't read. I don't know any math. I don't know any history or science, but I've been told I got to go to college, so please let me in. And then this person wants to let him in. So this is what happens again. People who have no concept of what goes on in real classrooms, especially at the freshman level. And then, yeah, you get to sit in your cushy office and have these big ideas about here's what education should be without any understanding of basic economics. Again, not to pile on, but like I had to look at this guy's bio. And again, it's all public. You can, these things, I didn't have to search very hard. On his university bio, this is the first sentence. His research, this gentleman's research, examines strange and beautiful things that challenge the imagination, phenomena that seem alien and intimate at once. This is a scholar who makes $360,000 a year. Okay? He examines strange and beautiful things. The word things is a word I never allow my students to use in their papers because the word things doesn't mean anything. What things exactly? Phenomena that seem alien and intimate at once. All gobbledygook. Okay? This is the scholarship that goes on at some state universities. Oh, you must be really smart. You have a PhD and all these years of experience. You're a dean. Gosh, you must be a really brilliant scholar. What do you study? Strange and beautiful things. Oh, okay. Thanks. That helps. He's especially interested in what monsters, misfits, inhuman forces, things that won't stay put, reveal about the cultures that dream, fear, and desire them. I think there's a word missing in there. I think he needs the word and because otherwise this doesn't make sense. What do you study? Things that won't stay put. All right. Not sure what that means. He's widely published in the fields of medieval studies, monster theory, and environmental humanities. And the word environmental is spelled wrong. So there's the English coming through. Misspelled word. So yeah, not a very well-written bio, to say the least. So, but this is what happens. This is how people get to be deans. People who are, again, completely separated from the reality of students. And much of their work is mostly like not super useful in the humanities usually. Like, why are you spending time doing that exactly? So there you go. That is one of our leaders at one of our state universities. $360,000 a year. All right. That's all for this time. Keep an eye out for more stuff coming about higher education and English here on English Champion.